Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Good morning. It's Monday morning, and you know what? I was gonna say it feels like a Monday. I'm gonna not start the week by complaining. It's actually pretty nice out here. We're gonna have a high in the low 80s today. The sun is out. It looks like a nice Monday here. I'm a little sad because I just found out. So JJ Jerez, my normal. One of my normal co-hosts for Guerilla Sports Off Ice. I just found out. I thought he flew home from Hawaii yesterday. He's flying home right now. So it's sad for everybody. I'm sad because that means I won't get to see him in the studio today. And he's sad because he's leaving Hawaii after more than a week. So sad boys all around. But hey, that's all right. We've got a lot to get into today. Mostly coming out of the NFL, but we do have a couple other things that we're going to touch on. We'll talk a little bit of NBA, and we've got it's an exciting week for the NHL, and we had a lot happening. We had a lot getting going this week, but like I said, a lot of news coming out of week 2 of the NFL. So we are going to start here. Like I said, a lot of disappointment. And some teams maybe off to starts that you weren't quite expecting. Week 2 did not disappoint. Starting with, and when I say it didn't disappoint, depending on the fan base you're talking to, this was maybe disappointing, but I find it interesting. After all the hype we had about rookie quarterbacks coming in, particularly Bo Nix and Caleb Williams, well, we're through 2 weeks and no rookie quarterback has even thrown for a touchdown. Again, if you're at least combining Bo Nix and Caleb Williams, who were the two most highly touted rookie prospects coming out of preseason, they've played 16 quarters of football between the two of them. No touchdowns thrown. Baltimore and Cincinnati dropped their second consecutive games to start the season 0-2 after coming into the season as heavy favorites near the top, at least in terms of odds makers and what the expectations were given the seasons that they had just a year ago. Both those teams are 0-2, while conversely, the Seahawks, Buccaneers, and Chargers all jump out to surprising 2-0 starts. If I would have told you that there was, between the two Harbaugh brothers, one that was 2-0, one that was 0-2, I'll bet you just about anything 3 weeks ago, pretty much 90% of the money would have been on the fact that it would have been Baltimore that was 2-0 and the Chargers were 0-2. Not the case. All of this, all the craziness, rookie quarterbacks and favorites losing 2 games and teams that were supposed to be bad being suddenly good, all while this is happening, the Kansas City Chiefs continue to look like the team of destiny with another late game heroics and a walk-off field goal to knock off those Cincinnati Bengals 26-25. It looked like the Chiefs were down and out, but again, it just, ever since their first Super Bowl and when Patrick Mahomes really burst onto the scene, it just doesn't seem like this Kansas City team can't do anything wrong. Doesn't matter who's on the team, which players walk in free agency, what players they trade. They just seem to find a way to win every single week. I remember having an argument, I think it was 2 seasons ago, Russell Wilson's first in Denver. I had an argument with some Broncos media folks because they were saying, man, gosh, this Broncos team, they should be undefeated. It just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. They should be undefeated. They're in every game, and man, they just come up short. It feels like for the last 5 years, they've just come up a little bit short at the end of the game. And I said, you guys, they're losers. And I don't mean that as like personal digs at any of the players or the personnel or the coaching staff, but they have a losing mentality. They find a way to lose. That's what losers do. When you have a losing culture and it's been so long since you've had any type of success, and the folks inside that building have started to forget what it feels like to win, you find a way to lose. And instead of coming up on the right side of a bunch of one-score games, well, you're now 9 years into coming up on the wrong side of one-score games. The Kansas City Chiefs are the exact opposite. This is a team that has bred winning, that understands what it takes to win a championship, and understands that you cannot get rattled over the course of a game. You have to play from the opening kickoff to the final buzzer, and they find a way to win. They're winners. Winners win. Another walk-off field goal. The Kansas City Chiefs continue to break the hearts of the NFL. However, let's talk about what was happening here in Denver. And we somehow, we came out of week 1, and everybody in Denver, I think, was like, wow, that was bad. Not a great rookie debut for Bo Nix. Surely, coming back home, playing against the Pittsburgh Steelers, who have a bad offense, surely this will be what it takes to get the Denver Broncos and Bo Nix back on track. As you can tell by what's happening here on the screen, that did not happen. It was, in fact, arguably a worse showing in week 2 for Bo Nix than what we saw in Seattle just a week ago. And if you go purely based on his quarterback rating, his QBR, it was definitively a worse performance in week 2 than it was in week 1. There was a lot of people going into this game that thought the Broncos had a legitimate shot at bouncing back from their week 1 loss to Seattle and getting a win on home field in the home opener against a Pittsburgh Steelers team that, again, is trying to figure out who they are on offense. Their starting quarterback was supposed to be Russell Wilson, who was inactive for a second consecutive week, although he was on the sidelines in full pads. They didn't know what they were on offense, and the Broncos have an outstanding record at home over the course of their time at, Invesco, Sports Authority Field, Empower Field, and Mile High, whatever you want to call it, in the newer field, not the old Mile High. They have an outstanding record, something only like 4 or 5 losses ever in their home opener. There was a lot that pointed to this game and said the Broncos and Bo Nix should be able to bounce back. He struggled mightily, and the Pittsburgh Steelers actually looked to find a groove. The issue was, for all the people that thought the Denver Broncos had a chance coming into this game at home, get back on track, get Bo Nix a win under his belt. The thing all those folks forgot, this Denver Broncos roster just isn't very good. There's not a lot of talent on it. There is a lot of unproven young players littering this roster. It's not just Bo Nix who's trying to find his way in the NFL. There's a lot of players on this roster. I remember having a conversation with Nate Jackson right before the season got started when PFF had them ranked as the second worst team in the NFL. Not only that, but it was the same week that the lines from Vegas came out saying that the Broncos over-under was set at 4.5 for the season. And Nate Jackson was making the point to me. He said, Jesse, you have to understand, a lot of these models, a lot of these predictions are based off of what you've done before. Well, the Broncos have a bunch of guys that don't have much data to go on. So he was trying to say it as like a, there might be some better players out here than what we thought. We just don't really know. Well, through 2 weeks, that hasn't been the case. And Bo Nix, who was, brought in and named the starting quarterback and a captain in order to help usher in this next wave of offense, has really struggled. Goes 20 for 35 yesterday while averaging just 7 yards per throw. See, the knock with Bo Nix coming out of college was that a lot of his passes were very scripted, short yardage checkdowns to move the sticks, which is fine. He was accurate, he was efficient, and he did it better than pretty much anyone in college. It seems like Bo Nix is struggling to adjust to the complexity of NFL defenses and the speed at which NFL first team defenses go, not the second and third teams that he was playing as primarily in the preseason. That's a big reason why it feels like maybe there's some Bronco fans who are confused by what we've seen because of how the promise you saw out of Bo Nix in those couple of preseason games. You have to remember, he was playing against non-starters in limited action. He was not playing an entire game. And again, a lot of those players he was going head-to-head with were caliber players similar to what he went up against in college, guys who weren't going to be playing every single snap in the NFL. They weren't the fastest, the biggest, the strongest. Again, he still looked promising, and I'm not saying that all hope is lost for Bo Nix based on these two games. But with what we've seen so far, it's clearly not a recipe for success. 2 interceptions, no touchdowns. He was sacked twice and finished with a quarterback rating of just 32.1, which was down from his 38 last week in Seattle. Now, the second interception he throws, it's kind of easy to write off. There's no time left on the clock. It's kind of a Hail Mary to try to get some point on the board, some points on the board in an attempt to get yourself within the ability to go for a 2-point conversion to tie the game. It was going to be tough anyways. It was uphill either way. It was a desperation throw. That one you can kind of write off to me. But again, everything else that we've seen around that, he looks overwhelmed. It looks like things are moving too fast for him. And geez, this sure looks like a quarterback that could be benefiting from standing on the sidelines, learning, watching, and getting a feel for what the pace is like during the NFL regular season. If only somebody could have suggested that. The Broncos, look, it's 2 games. They've got a long way to go here. Bo Nix is a young player. He's surrounded by a lot of young talent. Sean Payton looked frustrated yesterday in his post-game press conference. It looks like what Sean Payton is wanting to do and is wanting Bo Nix to do, it's just not quite there yet. And this is the part to me where I made the argument that I didn't think it made sense to throw Bo Nix in there in week 1. This is a rebuilding year. Broncos fans, media, coaches, whomever can try to talk themselves into that not being the case as much as they'd like. That is what is happening here. And that's what's necessary for the Broncos to get back to any level of competitiveness. The Denver Broncos won their Super Bowl, I believe it was 2015. There's a teeny tiny chance it was 2016, and I'm going to look silly saying this right here, but we're closing in on a decade very, very rapidly where this team has not only not been competitive, they haven't even been relevant. They haven't even sniffed the conversation of relevancy or true competitiveness. And the worst part has been that for a large portion of that, they've been stuck in the middle. Not good enough to be anywhere near the playoffs, not bad enough to be drafting at the top of the draft. And again, everyone, you got to pump the brakes too. It's 2 weeks. We'll see what happens here. But these 2 weeks, I think, have been a pretty real awakening that, hey, you're up against it this year. A lot of the games that we're going to watch over the next 16 weeks for the Denver Broncos are going to look like what we saw yesterday. A lot of young players struggling to figure it out and find their way in the NFL. If you ask me, it's not only okay, it's more than okay. This is what the Denver Broncos have needed to do since Super Bowl 50. They've needed to stop, reassess, kind of tear it down to the bare bones and build it back up. That's how you build a winner. You draft, you develop, you add in players where you need through free agency and trades, and you build a contender. The Broncos for a long time seemed content with the 2010s Colorado Avalanche plan. Just plug the holes and see if you can get it to work. See if you can get it to float long enough. It's not a recipe for success. It's not a recipe for championships. If it were me, I'd be pulling Bo Nix out right now. You have 2 veteran quarterbacks standing on the sidelines just watching. I'd pull Bo Nix out and I'd let him sit for a couple weeks. And I'd tell him, sit and watch and learn. Act like you're a QB1, but sit and watch and learn. Ask questions. Get a feel for the pace. It's clearly too much for you. Work on picking up schemes and reads from the sidelines. Bo Nix looks like a young quarterback who could benefit from some time developing, and purely throwing him into the fire obviously is not doing the Broncos any good. And what you have to start worrying about at a certain point is, when is the confidence going to take a hit? Bo Nix was asked yesterday by my guy D-Mac to walk them through what happened on that interception in the end zone. The Broncos were driving. They get into the red zone, and rising into the red zone looks like they're going to score, and something horrific happens. Does this sound familiar? Does it sound an awful lot like what we saw time and time again for the last 2 years under Russell Wilson? And when Bo Nix was asked a question, he said, yep, I dropped back and threw it to the other team. And you could hear the frustration in his voice. We are 2 weeks into this career. You do not want Bo Nix getting beat down and frustrated and dejected this quickly. This is a player that needs to develop. He was the last quarterback taken in the first round in a heavy quarterback draft. There's times you got to stop and ask yourself, well, why didn't all these other teams take him if he truly was, as a lot of people had him ranked coming out of the preseason, the best quarterback of the draft? You've got to be realistic. I was joking with Liv Moods yesterday, who was hosting our Broncos postgame show after every Broncos game. Liv Moods will be hosting a postgame show joined by Nate Jackson and Brandon Cristal. And she was saying, Jesse, I drank the Kool-Aid. I don't know why I drank the Kool-Aid. It's okay. Broncos fans drink the Kool-Aid every single summer. Every summer, the quarterback that comes in is the next quarterback that's going to take him over the edge. The wide receiver they get, he's the under the radar wide receiver that's going to take him over the edge. This is a rebuilding roster. It's a rebuilding team. There's going to be a lot of pain ahead. Do not ruin your first rookie quarterback with true exciting potential, maybe ever, at least since Jake Plummer. Don't ruin him by letting him go out there and get his head kicked in every single week behind a team that is just not up to snuff. We'll see how Bo Nix responds, but they are going to have to do some real soul searching and take their game to a completely different level. And they're going to have to change something about the way that they're playing if they want any hope of putting a win on the board before week 8, when they take on the Carolina Panthers, the only team that looks just as anemic as they do right now. So a lot to deal with for the Broncos and Bo Nix, a lot they got to get figured out. We'll see how Sean Payton and company handle it this week before they take on Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets, a task that is not getting any easier for them down at Dove Valley. Let's stick with the NFL, but let's move on here to a team that maybe the only team that had a more disappointing week 2 than the Denver Broncos, the New York Giants. Oh, the Giants. Oh, the Giants. I'll be honest, I liked the week 1 uniforms. I don't know if they were an actual nod to the Montreal Canadiens, but it sure looked like it. The New York Giants made some history this week, and not in a good way. They became the first team in NFL history to score 3 or more touchdowns themselves, allow none, and lose in regulation. Here is what the Washington Commanders did on Sunday against the New York Giants. Their drives were, as you can see here, a field goal, a field goal, a field goal. They took a knee to get out of the first half, a field goal, a field goal, a field goal, a field goal, and they won 21-18. Like I said, the New York Giants, maybe the only team having a worse weekend than the Denver Broncos. They fall to 0-2 after a shellacking in week 1, and then definitely the type of record you do not want to be holding. 3 or more touchdowns, don't give up any, find a way to lose in regulation. First team in NFL history to do that. Things aren't going great for the Giants. All right. Last thing on the NFL week 2, and it was actually a scary moment as a member of the chain gang collapsed on the Baltimore Ravens sideline. Medical staff immediately responded and administered CPR before taking that member of the chain gang out on a stretcher. When they left the stadium, that individual was awake, alert, totally coherent, and they were transferred to a local area hospital. As of right now, it sounds like, thankfully, everything is okay, but a scary scene that stopped the game. Every player on the field took a knee. There was a lot of players that you could tell were praying. Really scary moment to see stuff like this happen, especially when you have to, or when you see the medical staff has to come out and start administering CPR. Not the moment you want to see. Thankful to medical staff for responding so quickly. And it sounds like the individual, like I said, was okay, awake, alert, all of that as they left the field. So sounds like a good ending. Everyone's okay, but definitely a scary moment if you were watching Ravens on Sunday. This is one that I'll continue to monitor here and provide any updates as we get them if we hear anything else about this individual as the week goes on. All right. Moving away from the NFL, I want to touch briefly on what we saw up in Fort Collins. And Matt, or any Rams fans out there, look away. It was not pretty. The CU Buffs absolutely just blew out CSU. Wasn't close, and really the Rams never got out of their own way. That was the biggest issue. They actually strike first. CSU did. Looked like they were going to be able to score, take a 7-0 lead, end up getting held up in the red zone, and had to settle for a field goal. That really set the tone for the rest of the game. CU goes on to win it 28-9. CSU not scoring a touchdown till late, going for a 2-point conversion to try to make it a 2-possession game. Of course, they would have had to go 4-2 on each of those next 2 possessions as well. They failed, left them at 9. Couldn't really ever get anything going. There's nothing but penalties and mistakes for CSU. And CU, the Buffs, looked like the team with poise, with maturity, in control of the game, the team that was clearly better. And you know what? Good. They should have looked that way. This is a team that came into the season with their head coach and a lot of their players saying that they had college football playoff aspirations. They should have taken care of business against CSU. Yes, the Rams were looking for a big week to cap off their announcement that they are moving from the Mountain West Conference to the Pac-12. They were looking to ride that momentum into the weekend, and it was shut down pretty quickly. Now, there was a moment after the game that I didn't love. But as always, there's context to it. The quarterback handshake at midfield. Shedeur Sanders didn't want to shake his hand. Now, there was a lot of shit talking, predominantly from the CSU side and from quarterback Fowler Nicholisi in particular, talking a lot about Instagram followers and let's see how far that gets them, and bringing up last year how they weren't ready for what CSU brought. So when Fowler Nicholisi and Sanders meet at the 50-yard line after the game, Nicholisi puts his hand out, and Shedeur Sanders, instead of shaking his hand, starts telling him, yeah, I heard you. You were talking a lot of shit. You were talking shit on Instagram. You can't F with me, was what he said. I'll keep it a little bit PG here. And Nicholisi just walked away and said, fine, keep talking. Like I said, I don't love that. I think when the game is done, your competitors, you talk and you jaw at each other and all that. But when the game's over, the game's over. Shake their hand and move on. Be the competitor. Again, I'm not going to absolutely bury Shedeur on this. CSU was talking a lot. You just won. You've earned bragging rights. You've earned that right to talk a little bit. But again, I just didn't love the not shaking his hand. I'm not going to make a big deal out of it. It really doesn't matter. But that is one thing I would have liked to see. Hey, because that's what it's supposed to be about sports, right? You talk shit, you compete, you fight, you go to war tooth and nail, but then when it's all done, you get up and you have respect for the person on the other side. And again, I am not saying this is exclusive to CU. Need to have respect for CSU. Same goes for them. I don't like Nicholisi just storming off and saying, fine, keep talking then. I don't like that either. But shake their hand at the end of the game, move on, go talk your shit, to the cameras, all that stuff. But either way, Shadur and the Buffs earned the right to talk a little bit there. 28-9, they took care of business. The first time the game was in Fort Collins since 1996. Did not go the Rams' way. All right, rounding things out today, we're going to talk quickly about a story that we brought up last week. Want to just make sure we circle back to it, following up on the story that the city of Camden, New Jersey, has made a pitch to the Philadelphia 76ers amid their search for a new arena. They're saying, hey, there is no better place for you guys than Camden, New Jersey. Now, I know there's a lot of people who will immediately be like, well, no, they're not going to relocate. This would not be an official relocation. Camden, New Jersey, and where this site is being proposed, right on the Delaware River, is about 13 minutes from where the 76ers are currently looking to build their arena in downtown Philadelphia, moving it out of that South Philly sports complex. But this was the rendering that was just released this morning from the city of Camden and state of New Jersey, trying to entice the 76ers to move their arena here, offering them $400 million in tax incentives. The current construction project that the Philadelphia 76ers are exploring in downtown Philly would be completely privately funded. They would have to come up with the money, start to finish, all on their own. The state of New Jersey is offering them a $400 million tax break to build this stadium 13 minutes from where they're currently looking. Not only that, but this stadium would also come with improvements and upgrades for their current team quarter, HQ, and practice facility, which already reside in Camden, New Jersey. This is something that Philadelphia and the 76ers, to a lot of people's surprise, are very seriously considering. Look, you don't turn your nose up at $400 million. They're weighing what it sounds like right now about three options. The Philadelphia 76ers are considering this move right here to Camden, New Jersey, right on the Delaware River. Like I said, about 13 minutes from where they're currently looking to build, so it wouldn't be anything crazy for fans. In addition to that, this is already right next to where they've got their team HQ and practice facility. So really, like I said, not that strenuous on the organization. They're weighing this. They're weighing an option, building a brand new arena, completely privately funded in downtown Philly. Then I mentioned that South Philly sports complex a minute ago. They are also considering staying at the Wells Fargo Center and doing large-scale upgrades to that. Wells Fargo Center is owned and controlled mostly by Comcast, and Comcast has come out recently and said that they are committed to keeping the 76ers in that sports complex in South Philly, which is all run by Comcast, and saying that they are committed to putting forward money to renovate and help keep them there, with potentially putting plans in place to build an arena in the future in that same location. I've been to multiple games at Wells Fargo Center, nice arena. And I like the concept that they have down there. It's really, you pull into this one, it's a complex. You pull into this complex, there's Wells Fargo Center, there's the baseball stadium, then out there's the football stadium. They all kind of share parking lots, technically. Like, if you just looked at an overhead view of it, there's fences and stuff like that that separate a couple of the different properties. But it's one large area. Cool concept to have everything literally in one parking lot. The issue is there's nothing really else out there, even hotels. The closest hotel is probably about a 15-ish minute walk. You can see the stadiums and the arenas from the hotels, but it's a little bit of a walk. You got to go under a highway. It's really main roads. It's not super walker friendly. I like the idea of having them all in one spot, but truthfully, the functionality isn't great. I would be in support of, and I mean, I guess we'd see what the Flyers did after that, because the 76ers and the Flyers share a building right now. It would be interesting to see the 76ers just bail out of Wells Fargo Center and what that would mean for that facility as well. But again, this continues to be something that intrigues the Philadelphia 76ers. We'll keep an eye on it here. Last note for today. NHL main camps open this week. We did it. We made it through the offseason as of a few weeks ago with college football and NFL starting, but we've got NHL kicking off this week, NBA following suit next week, and we are entering back into the full calendar, full slate for professional sports. Really exciting. We will be there all week down at the Avs practice facility, bringing the very best content available for the Avs. Megan Angley flying back from LA today. JJ Jerez flying back from Hawaii today, just in time to get things kicked off for the Avs this week. That is all I've got for you guys for this morning. I got to get down to the office. We got a bunch going on down there. We'll have more coming your guys' way this afternoon. Chloe running the board today, making sure that you guys can see us, hear us, see everything on your screen, all that good stuff. So for Chloe, I'm Jesse Montano. This is Guerilla Sports Daily. We'll be back at it tomorrow morning. Thanks so much for watching, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.